In 2 years, Egypt was able to confront many challenges, make many achievements, and is continuing on with its determination. One of these important tools that helped Egypt doing so was the Egyptian foreign policy. The Egyptian foreign policy that helped portraying Egypt's image to the world, transmitting and transferring what is happening or the realities of what's going on in Egypt on the ground. Also portraying the new foreign policy of Egypt, and at the same time trying to be part and the cornerstone of Egypt's developmental plans for the future. Today we have the pleasure of having or interviewing Councillor Ahmed Abou Zeid, who is the official spokesman of the Egyptian Foreign Ministry. Councillor Ahmed Abou Zeid, we thank you very much for being with us. Let me start by asking you, in 2 years, the Egyptian diplomacy was able to be the backbone of Egypt, shaping up its foreign policy and facing many challenges. Can you further illustrate on this?
Well, definitely, as you mentioned, there was a huge challenge after the 30th of June revolution. Mainly was how to explain to the international community and the entire world what was the frustration, what were the frustrations that the Egyptian people were facing before the 30th of June, the violations that were done against the constitution, against the civil rights, and against the aspirations of all the Egyptians. So part of this challenge was how to transform or transfer what is happening in Egypt to the entire world. Also to explain what were the main tasks or the main objective of the June 30th revolution, and to explain that it was basically a popular revolution, not a military coup. There was sort of confusion on behalf of some countries and some organizations to understand. It was difficult for them to understand what was, how is this considered a revolution, and some of them have had some legal problems in this regard to comprehend and to accept the change that has happened in Egypt. Some organizations considered this as a non-constitutional change of regime. So the main challenge here was to outreach, to reach to every one of those countries and organizations, and to pay visits to them to explain. And that was a huge mission done by our embassies abroad and by the foreign ministers of Egypt at that time to travel in these tours to try to explain exactly what has happened in Egypt and how this is considered a revolution. And after that, of course, we faced a lot of other challenges that we had to deal with after that.
Of course, in dealing with that, you had also to deal with lots of other outside challenges. Part of it was a kind of foreign war and foreign media, and lots of tools that were being really deployed for such an issue. How did you face that? How did you deal with that?
It was definitely a very challenging mission, especially that we were not working in vacuum. There were other parties who were trying to confront all this effort done by the government at this stage. It was a responsibility not only on the foreign affairs or the government of Egypt, but it was also a challenge facing the whole Egyptian community, the Egyptian society. So we had to resort to all the tools that we have. We resorted to the popular diplomacy, that we organized missions to travel into different countries, representing different segments of the Egyptian society, the scholars, the university teachers, the actors, the journalists, the media people. So we had to organize those trips to go to tour around the entire world to explain what is the nature of the challenges that the Egyptian society is facing. We also had to reach out to different segments of the other societies, not only the official societies, the official segment, but also the media. We wrote the articles in the international media, on the international social media. We reached to the parliaments in the United States, in Europe, in Africa. We also reached out to our African brethren, to the African Union, and also held a series of meetings there on different levels with the ambassadors, the African group ambassadors in different capitals. So it was a mission and a task that is entrusted to the whole Egyptian society. We could say that the foreign affairs was of course in the forefront of this mission, but we managed to resort to all the resources that we have. We also had the task of explaining the roadmap, the political roadmap with the different phases that is going through, to explain the roadmap and to showcase how Egypt is developing in implementing this roadmap in its different phases.
Yes, and that takes us to a next stage where Egypt was able to implement the agreed upon roadmap steps. And from your point of view, was it an easy task to present the new foreign policy of Egypt after implementing the agreed roadmap steps?
Well, the Egyptian diplomacy at that time embarked on a multi-task mission, which has different pillars. The first pillar was to have an open approach, to reach out to different regions and different countries without any kind of inhibitions or any restrictions in this regard. So on the presidential diplomacy, you will recognize how the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was keen on traveling to different countries. He participated in the first African Union summit in Malabo, and then in all the series of African summits after that in Addis Ababa. In those summits, His Excellency the President was keen on meeting one-on-one with different heads of state of the African states, and to reach out to them and to build personal ties and personal relations with them. Also, his trips after that to Europe, to Italy, to Spain, to Britain, also to the Asian countries, to India, to China, to Russia. All this diverse spectrum of countries. The main objective behind that was to show that we are not going to be trapped into any kind of camps. On the contrary, we are open. Egyptian diplomacy is open and willing to gain experience and to benefit from its relations with all the countries, not only one camp, name it Eastern or Western. Also, the foreign minister himself, he had a lot of trips, and he went to different countries in order to explain the nature of challenges Egypt is facing at this regard. I would think that Egypt's ability to gain the non-permanent seat at the Security Council with an overwhelming support at the General Assembly, and also winning the seat of the African Peace and Security Council at the same time, reflects such a degree of success that the Egyptian diplomacy has gained, the confidence of the international community, the confidence of its African brethren, that Egypt is really capable in maintaining and representing those countries, the Arab world and the African countries, and also maintaining peace and security, and being a partner with the other 14 members of the Security Council in preserving the Charter of the United Nations and the peace and security in the world.
Another step or stage was regaining the African Union Security and Peace and Security Council seat, and of course gaining the UN Security Council non-permanent seat. And we really want to know Egypt's efforts, or the Egyptian diplomacy's efforts in this regard.
As you mentioned, of course, when a country like Egypt, of Egypt's weight and experience and historical heritage, joined the Security Council, there are always expectations associated with this membership. Expectations by the African countries whom we represent, and the Arab countries as well, as we are representing the only Arab country in the Security Council. This, as you mentioned, of course, puts a burden on the Egyptian diplomacy to do that. This requires a lot of consultations between the Egyptian Foreign Ministry and the other countries in Africa and in the Arab world, in order to follow up and be aware of all the issues that are being discussed in the Security Council, and to represent in the best way possible the positions of the African states, the African nations, and also the decisions and resolutions taken by the African Union and the Arab League. At the same time, there are certain files that Egypt considers as of priority, special priority. You will find Egypt focused on those files within its membership in the Security Council, among which is, of course, the Middle East peace process, the Palestinian cause, counter-terrorism, the situation in Libya as a border country. On those files, you will find Egypt is in the forefront of leading the work of the Security Council in order to take certain positions. For example, on counterterrorism, we were keen to apply for the membership or the presidency of the counterterrorism committee of the Security Council, and we managed to get this chairmanship, through which we are keen to present Egypt's view. You know, Egypt has a specific view with regard to counterterrorism. We see that it's an overall comprehensive approach that says that counterterrorism should deal with the root causes of terrorism, with the narrative, and how to counter the narrative of those terrorist groups, and how to also to detect the financing of terrorist groups. It's a comprehensive approach, and I think we are trying vigorously to try to apply this vision and to convince the other members of the Council of applying this vision. During the Egyptian presidency of the Security Council in month of May, we called for a special session of the Security Council on the ministerial level, which was the first time in history for the Security Council to deal with the ideology and the narrative of the groups, of the terrorist groups. And this session led to a certain task, or asked the Secretary General of the United Nations to put forward a comprehensive strategy to deal with the counter narrative, with the narrative and the ideology of the terrorist groups, and to put forward an action plan on how to implement this strategy. That I would consider this as a big and important achievement. Also on the Palestinian cause, during our presidency to the Council, a special session was held also to discuss the issue of protection, how to provide protection to the Palestinian people in the Palestinian occupied territories. And also that was an important achievement, and it reflected the real challenges and hardship the Palestinians are facing on a daily basis on the ground. So in general, I think our membership in the Security Council and in the Peace and Security Council in the African Union provides a good opportunity for Egypt to get closer to its African nations, brothers and sisters, and to the Arab countries, and to build more ties, and to get the sense of the positions, and to reflect our responsibility towards both the Arab nations and the African nations.
Not just the foreign policy of Egypt, but also explaining some of the domestic and internal problems that happened to Egypt. From your point of view, how was the Egyptian diplomacy able to deal with such an important challenge?
Of course, I mean, lately you witnessed a lot of challenges that Egypt faced regarding specific incidents that happened. The issue of the Russian aircraft, and then the Italian student, and then the other Egypt Air flight as well. Of course, this have already put Egypt in the forefront of the international media and the foreign media, and it gave an opportunity for lots of speculations and somehow mishandling and unfair handling by some foreign media. We had to respond to that all. We had to be as transparent and as possible to show to the entire world the type of investigations that is ongoing in the country on those incidents, to share whatever information we have with others, and also to caution some sort of willingness on behalf of some foreign media outlets to jump into conclusions early before the investigations and the technical investigations or legal investigations are done and completed. It is an ongoing challenge that we have to face on a daily basis. We have to deal with it, and we were keen on holding interviews with foreign media outlets and to write articles. We tried to utilize all the tools that we have, like the social media, the Twitter account of the foreign ministry, the blog of the foreign ministry, and also to utilize our missions and diplomatic missions abroad, who received clear instructions by the foreign ministry here to be proactive and to reach out to the media and to the officials of the countries they are represented in order to explain the nature of the dealings with those incidents that are happening in our country.
Finally, the Egyptian diplomacy is also a cornerstone to the Egyptian developmental plans, particularly Egypt's vision for 2030. How are you dealing with that part, particularly that it is transferring the positive side of Egypt?
I think this is a good question because it shows the other side of the coin, which is the developments that are happening in Egypt that needs to be showcased and shown to the international community. Because unfortunately, lately we recognize that there is only focus on the negative incidents that could happen, and trying to portray that the only image of Egypt is an image of terrorism or attacks or hijacking of planes or others. So we have embarked on this strategy of trying to showcase the good examples, the success stories that are happening in the country, and this include the developmental projects, the inauguration of the Suez Canal, the Suez Canal axis, showing investment opportunities, also showing or explaining the 2030 vision for sustainable development with all its axes and all its sectors, So there is a main focus at this time to show all those developments that are happening in the country. Also, it's a main, it's very high on the priority list of the foreign minister in his foreign visits to different countries, to show the business opportunities, the investment opportunities in the country. And our missions abroad are organizing business trips for the private sector from Europe, from the United States, to come to Egypt and to see the opportunities as well. I'm sure you would recognize the level of visits by foreign ministers to Egypt lately. Most of those visits are accompanied by the signature of economic and trade agreements in different sectors of the economy. All this manifests that Egypt is really on the road, on the right track with regard to economic and social development, that we are keen on partnering with other countries and other organizations. We have a lot of opportunities for investment, and in fact one of the highest rate on investment is in Egypt compared to other countries in the world. So this is the main objective right now, is to focus on those fields and those areas, and try to and it's the way as well to counter this negative narrative that is spreading, and try to show to our partners the level of developments that happened in Egypt over the last 2 years, and the objective for the coming years.
We know that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has and will continue on to shoulder the responsibility of carrying the image of Egypt outside. Councillor Ahmed Abou Zeid, the official spokesman of the Foreign Ministry, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.